call the January 27th meeting of the Old Colony Planning Council to order. The first item of business is the accessibility statement. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print materials are available upon request. If you would like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202. The notice of non-discrimination rights and protections to beneficiaries with regard to federal Title VI non-discrimination protections and the state non-discrimination protections is posted in this meeting room and is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website. Please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833, extension 202 for more information. Thank you. All right, so Sandy, how about roll call of our members?
All right, I'll do the roll call, and please let me know if you're the delegate or alternate. Thank you. Abington.
Steve Santisano, delegate, present.
Avon.
Delegate.
Bridgewater, delegate.
John Costa, alternate.
Brock, did I hear from Brockton?
Preston Huckabee, alternate.
Okay. Duxbury. East Bridgewater. Easton.
Delegate.
Halifax. Hanover. Hanson.
Delegate, Debbie Petty.
Kingston. Pembroke. Plymouth.
Delegate.
Plimpton.
Delegate.
Stoughton.
Delegate.
West Bridgewater.
Delegate. Present.
And Whitman. Okay.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, everyone. So thank you all for joining us. Our first, or actually our third item on the agenda is going to be the minutes from our December 2nd meeting. And I think Mary's got those up on the screen. Did everyone get a chance to read them and review them before tonight?
Yes.
John Costa
Any-
had reviewed them and he has some amendments that he had submitted to me. I've not made the changes yet.
Okay. All right. Does John want to go over, or do you want to share what John's amendments were?
Let's see. John, there was a couple of typos. I think that we had gone over some, a lot of it was Scribner's error, and there was nothing of substantive. Is that right, John? Yeah. Oops.
Okay. All right. So any other questions for Mary on the minutes? It looks like we're going to be making some typographical corrections, but nothing of any substance.
That's correct.
Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved, Madam President.
Second.
Okay, so we have got a motion by Frank and a second by Jean Marie. Can we do a roll call vote, Sandy, for acceptance of the December 2nd meeting minutes?
Absolutely. Abington.
Accept.
Avon.
Accept.
Bridgewater, accept. Brockton.
Accept.
Easton.
Accept.
Hanson.
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Duxbury's here.
Plymouth.
Accept.
Plimpton.
Accept.
Stoughton.
Accept.
West Bridgewater.
Accept.
And Whitman.
Sandy, did you call Duxbury?
I did not, because they weren't there when I originally took the roll call.
Okay, they're here
Ellie's
now.
here now.
Okay, so Duxbury.
Accept.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mary, did you want to stick with the agenda in the order that we have it, or did you want to take anything out of order? Are we just going to work our way down?
Actually, Madam President, there is one other set of minutes, and then what I would suggest is after these minutes, if we can just go take the audit presentation out of order, I think that would be appropriate. I do have the
Okay.
January 19th. I did send them out to the council members. This was from the special meeting.
Okay. Did everyone get a chance to read the meeting minutes from the January 19th meeting, which was last week?
Yep.
If there are no questions, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay,
Seconded,
Sandy's got a
Madam
motion.
President.
Okay, a second by Frank. Sandy, can you do a roll call vote for acceptance of this second set of minutes?
Sure. Abington,
Accept.
Avon,
Accept.
Bridgewater, accept. Brockton,
Accept.
Duxbury. Duxbury. Easton,
Accept.
Yep, there we go. We've got Val.
okay. Easton,
accept,
Hanson,
Accept.
Plymouth,
Accept.
Plimpton,
Accept.
Stoughton,
Accept.
West Bridgewater,
Accept.
and Whitman.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, based on Mary's recommendation, let's move to new business. And we're going to, we've got representatives from Markham here. Is
If
that correct?
If I could, Madam President, I'll
Certainly.
first go to introduce Russell Knapp and have Brenda also. Brenda and Markham has been working very hard and over the last few months with Markham LLC and preparing this audit. I know it's been referred to by the Finance Committee and they'll take it up under Finance, but they reported out favorably. But I want to just, thank both Brenda for working hard on this along with Markham. And I believe, Russell, I'll start with you, or Kyle or Mike, we're going to go to you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. My name is Russell Knapp. Kyle Connors is the director on the job. Instrumental in helping us move the audit along much faster this year. So thank everybody for having us again back this year. So Kyle's going to walk us through the top level of the financials, and then if you have any questions on some more specifics of the audit, I'll be happy to jump in and answer any questions.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for having us here. Certainly happy to be here. Wishing we were doing this in person. I'm sure we're all looking to get back to some sort of normalcy, but for now we'll do it via Zoom. So I'm going to walk you through the financial statements. If you have any questions along the way, please, certainly don't hesitate to ask, and we'll help answer them. Obviously, we don't get without a lot of hard work from both Mary and Brenda. Great people to work with. The communication was key in getting this audit done on time, especially with everything being done pretty much 100% remotely due to the pandemic. So we don't get here without a lot of great communication. So I just want to thank them. They're a pleasure to work with. This is the audit report, the independent auditor's report. And if you were to read through, you see that we do have a qualification, which I'm sure is not a surprise to the majority of people on this call as it relates to the pension liability. The state pension plan does name Old Colony Planning Council as having an associated liability, but the council has opted not to include that on their balance sheet. And I think there's still quite a bit of back and forth on where that liability really lies. Does it lie with the council? Does it lie with the member towns? And so because of that, we include this qualified opinion. Had you adopted it in the prior year, your liabilities would have increased about 2.3 million. There wasn't a way for us to figure out what it would have been for 2020 because the report hadn't been issued because we're a little bit ahead of where we were in the 2019 audit. But the side, we didn't have any material adjustments. We didn't have any departures from GAAP. So we've issued a clean set of financial statements outside of the one pension issue. Mary, if you want to hop over to the balance sheet. These next few pages here are management's discussion and analysis. I think if you're looking for a quick read on where things stand, this is certainly a good place to do it, but the balance sheet on page 13.
Oops, sorry.
Sorry for scrolling so fast and making you dizzy. 12 and 13. Here we go.
Perfect. So if you were to scroll down just a little bit to your net position, you're going to see that overall net position is pretty comparable, up a little bit, up about from where you were in the previous year. It's been really interesting. A lot of the different entities that we work with and seeing how COVID impacted them, for the most part, at least through June 30, 2020, the operations were pretty normal. The revenue was pretty normal. Your expenses were pretty much in line with where they were in 2019. So at least from a financial standpoint, through June 30, 2020, the council has been pretty stable compared to the prior year. There's a couple of liabilities to bring to your attention under the non-current liabilities section. This is your long-term debt, your net portion. That's the note that you have with Rockland Trust that's being paid down over time, and that payment was made. Right underneath that is your net OPEB liability, which is your other post-employment benefits. And you'll see it decreased quite a bit from 532,000 down to 479,000. A couple of reasons for that. The first of which is that you opted to increase your discount rate from 6% to 6.25%. And while 0.25% might not seem like much, that's what you're anticipating your assets in that plan to work at. It has a pretty direct impact on your overall liability. So a 6.25% is still a relatively conservative discount rate to choose. I think we see other entities go upwards of 7.5%. So with your plan being 60% funded, I think 6.25% is still a pretty reasonable discount rate to be at. The other factor here on your OPEB liability is that you funded your contribution 100%, your actuarial determined contribution, which was about $100,000 in fiscal 20. This next page here is your income statement. And as I was saying before, you can see that your total revenue increased compared to the prior year. Your federal contracts, which is really what you're most dependent on from a large dollar standpoint, was stable compared to 2019, increased a little bit. No issues with your member assessments revenue. So overall, your revenue was pretty consistent, as were your expenses, which led to an operating income of $311,000. I think some of that, and I'll defer to Mary and Brenda on this. I think some of that operating income was just due to the first and second quarters of 2020 being, I'm sorry, the third and fourth quarters of 2020 with COVID hitting, some projects that you had planned to do, just kind of everything got put on halt. So I would imagine that you probably see that made up for some in 2021. If you go down to page 15, please. I'm sorry. Yeah. 17. Thank you. These are the assets that you have set aside for your OPEB plan. And you can see it increased quite a bit from 622,000 to 703,000, about $80,000. And just to put that into perspective for you, $80,000 increase in your net assets and your net position increased your funding percentage on your OPEB liability from 54% up to 60%. So a 6% in 1 year. It's certainly a good place to be at.
Kyle, you were phasing out a little bit.
Okay, I apologize. I have a little bit of trouble with my microphone sometimes.
That's okay.
So just in case that was missed, the funding percentage for your OPEB total liability increased from 54% to 60%, which is certainly a good place to be at.
Yeah.
If you could hop to page 30, please. It might be easier to type it in the top.
Yeah, I'm going to just do this.
That'll work great too. Thank you.
Okay.
So a couple of things to bring to your attention here as it relates to your OPEB liability. there are a couple of assumptions that are made that really drive what the liability ends up being. Again, the discount rate is reasonable at 6.25%. And if you scroll down just a little bit, the big area where we see a lot of times the liability jump up from year to year is when the actuary updates mortality tables. Right now you're using 2014 tables scaled up to 2016, which is pretty much the most recent ones available. So you shouldn't see a huge jump in your liability for an assumption change as it relates to the tables that your actuary is using.
Okay.
And if you could go to page 33, please. Earlier when we were talking about the discount rate and what 1/4% might mean, you're using 6.25%. Let's just say if you increase that discount rate up from 6.25 to 7.25, your liability would go down quite a bit from 479,000 to 331. So one percentage point does make up a significant difference in your total liability. We could jump to page 46, please. Thank you. This is the federal money that the council received through fiscal year 2020. And what we're required to do is perform what's called a single audit, where we select some of this federal money and we test it for a few things. We test it for, are the costs allowable? Did you draw down the money timely? Did you report your expenditures to the federal agency timely? And so we did not note any non-compliance to bring to your attention. The second part of what we're required to do here is to look at your internal controls over financial reporting. And we didn't have any findings to bring to your attention. Nothing significant that we thought, we would need to discuss, but there is one area that I want to at least bring to your attention verbally and not necessarily on paper. We were working closely, obviously, with Brenda and Mary, and we noticed that Brenda has access to the financial reporting system. She generates the reports that Mary and others review and certainly approve. But we felt like there should be someone else who has access to her financial reporting system, whether that's Mary or someone else. Not that we're certainly not accusing anyone of anything, but from a best practices standpoint, you want to make sure that Mary can go in and run the same reports as Brenda so that they can get the same information. So that's just a verbal recommendation from us.
And Kyle, just on that point, so when this last year, I think, as Russell knows, is that we've instituted a number of things, including staff evaluations, 6 month and 1 year. And one of the things that we talked about at Brenda's 1 year is, in fact, creating a sustainability plan, having to make sure the checks and balances. So the what if Brenda decides that she's going to go to, where are you going to go, Aruba for 18 months, who's going to handle things? And the reality is that is conversations that we've begun, and Brenda's putting together a plan that we can do that. So quite well taken, and appreciate that being brought up verbally.
Aruba sounds nice. I think I could use 18 months there myself.
We could all go.
So that basically concludes the financial statement audit that we have in front of us. But certainly, if anyone has any questions now, we're happy to answer them. If anyone has any questions otherwise or after the fact, Mary, please share our contact information. We're happy to talk to the council directly.
Great. I think this is a time, Madam President, if there's any questions that the council members have.
Kyle, I've got a question for you. So what's what would be the pros and cons of going from a 6.25 to a 7.25 discount rate? I'm really not that familiar with that. Are we where we should be, or is there a benefit to moving to a different discount rate?
Mary, if you could go to page 40 real quick, that'd be really helpful.
Yep.
So certainly the benefit of having a higher discount rate is that you show a lower liability. Right there, yeah. And the downfall of it is that you've got your assets and you're trying to figure out what you're anticipating those assets are going to work at for a fiscal year. So if you are, let's say you pick 8% because your assets worked at 8% in 2019, that might be great for 2019, but you might be really severely understating your liability in general, because the next year it could come in at 3%. So the goal really is to just try to provide a realistic liability, not under or not overstated. Certainly the higher that a plan is funded, when you start getting closer to 80 to 90% funded, and especially as the dollar amounts increase too, having a more aggressive discount rate makes sense. 6.25 is pretty reasonable with where you're at, as far as 60% funded is a good number to be at. Compared to some of the larger plans that we see, certainly $700,000 toward your liability is a good chunk, but you probably don't want to go too much higher until your plan gets into the $1 million range, or your funding percentage gets higher.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that explanation.
I have, may I, through the president, Christine. I just have a question. So is this over a 10-year period and nothing has changed? What's been the last 10 years? Is it up to 2020?
If you wouldn't mind, Mary, going up to page 38. So the OPEB plan has sort of come to the forefront of the governmental financial world starting in 2018, because in the past it would just kind of be one of those liabilities that was buried in the notes that no one really looked at because it wasn't required to be on the face of your financial statements. Well, in 2018, GASB 74 and 75 came out, and now that liability actually has to go on the face of your financial statements. So in a lot of the other municipalities that we work with, they kind of had that oh no moment. We're 0% funded and we've got $40 million liability. We need to start funding this thing. Whereas with you guys, there was already funds starting to be set aside. So to be at 60% on a pension plan is usually pretty normal. To be at 60% for an OPEB plan is far and above what we typically see. But from a 10-year perspective, we only have data that your actuary provides to us dating back to 2018. So as time goes on, next year you'll see 4 years, the year after that you'll see 5 years of data, but we only have 3 years of data made available to us. You can see here though, starting in 2018, your plan was funded at almost 32%. So you've jumped up from 32% to 54% to almost 60% over the course of 3 years.
So if I can follow up on that, did the OPEB, that's been extended out, am I correct, till 2032?
When you anticipate paying it off or having it 100% funded, I'm not entirely sure. Generally, your actuary helps you fund it or gives you recommendations on how to fund it under a 10-year or 20-year or a 30-year plan.
So what's the actuary actually telling us or showing us?
Yep, if you go down one page, each year the actuary tells you what they think you should contribute to your plan in order to have it fully funded over the period of time that you agreed upon. And so as you can see, dating back to 2018, they recommended that you contribute 116,000, which you have, so you funded it at 100%. Funded it at 100% in both 2019. I think as you get closer to a higher overall funded percentage, you'll probably see that required contribution stabilize or even potentially decrease. But that's where you're at right now.
Any more questions for Kyle? I think everyone's had a chance to read it and appreciated the explanation.
Christine, I'm sorry. I do have one more question.
Sure, go ahead, Sandy.
Kyle, I'm sorry. One more.
That's okay.
So I guess at the end of all of this, what would be your recommendation? And maybe some areas that we're falling behind or we should be more aggressive in from in just, I guess, the past year.
I suppose that as it relates to, I guess, what areas?
OPEB, I think she's referring to.
Yeah, it'd probably be the OPEB.
Yeah, as your independent auditors, we kind of have to maintain that independence, and you know, we try to provide information as opposed to providing advice. I think as we start to provide advice on, you know, whether you should fund it more, higher, or lower, we start to cross the line where we become, you know, helping make management decisions and not being independent anymore. So I just kind of stick to showing you the trends.
What I may suggest on that, Sandy, is that at maybe the next finance meeting with Doug, and maybe we have some others to really just have that discussion in terms of you know, seeking out some, you know, alternatives and the like. I think it would be appropriate as we start preparing for the budget for the following year, right? The ebbs and flows of what we can invest in. So.
Yep. Good suggestion. All right. Any other questions for Kyle? All right. Hearing none. So do you need a motion from us, Mary, to accept this financial report? All right. Do we have a motion to accept the financial report as submitted?
I'll make.
Lee Hartman, so moved.
Okay, so Lee made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Sandy. Sandy, can you take roll call vote?
Sure. Okay, Abington,
Accept.
Avon,
Accept.
Bridgewater, accept, Brockton,
Accept.
Duxbury,
Accept.
Easton,
Accept.
Hanson,
Accept.
Plymouth,
Accept.
Plimpton,
Accept.
Stoughton,
Accept.
West Bridgewater.
Oh, he's muted. Paul, can you unmute him?
I cannot.
Oh, oh, he's the only one that can unmute himself?
Yes.
Yep.
I heard him from here. He said accept. I'll
Okay.
open it.
Very good. All right.
And Whitman.
You'll vouch for him. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, Kyle, so much. And for getting this to us early this year is truly appreciated. You know, all the teamwork working with staff and you guys getting this report to us is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much.
Mary and Ms. President, David Klein had submitted a comment, I believe, in regards to this last article just talked about.
Yep.
And he was saying,
yep, and I think everybody may have seen that, but I think whether it's for Markham at this point, I think that question probably goes to, make sure that David can make the next finance meeting and have his finance background would be helpful in talking about it. I think that's probably the appropriate place. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, David.
And thank you, David, for that suggestion.
This is Christine. This is Becky Coletta. I
Hello,
just
Becky.
also want to vote. I joined midstream, but Becky Coletta, delegate for Pembroke, votes yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky, very much. All right, so did you get that, Sandy?
I did. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So are we moving on then, Mary?
We're moving on to the financial report. So Kyle and Russell, thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance.
Thank you, Kyle and Russell.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Russell, talk to you
Have a good
soon.
night.
Brenda, since can you just tell me which one we're starting with?
Oh, sure.
And just for everybody, I am going to need to stop sharing screen and then open because it's a little bit scattered here. So which one are we starting off with?
The statement of expenditures.
You. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, so the statement of expenditure shows total expenses for the month to have been $184,160.18. So, and that's all the details on there. So next up is the cash position report. Okay, cash position shows that we had total income of $275,608.86. Total disbursements were $862,696.23. Total cash available at the end of the month was $1,156,114.70. Our OPEB account had a gain of $19,119.21, bringing us to an ending balance in the OPEB account of $800,936.12. And moving on to the budget resources report. Okay, the total grant receipts for the month were $123,943.48, which is found, it's go down, it's on page, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's the 123, the last, the
Right here.
receipt.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, no problem. This brings the total cumulative receipts for this fiscal year to $1,974,344.02. Then we're on to the AAA report. Okay, pass-through funds showing in the top graph shows total cumulative billings as of this report to a total of $1,690,219. Allocated volunteer transportation funds account had no activity in December, so the balance in that account at the end of the month remained at $189,782. In the bottom graph, ombudsman and admin funds show cumulative total billings of $267,867. Next is the ROM statement and activity report. Okay, the balance at the beginning of November, you want to go to the top of the page. Okay. The balance at the beginning of November was $178,303.66. The December expense total was $4,392.96. The December receipts were a total of $5,850. The total ROM FY21 expenses to date are $44,360.32. The total FY21 income to date is $35,100. And the ending balance in the ROM bank account in December was $179,882.74.
Where
I'm sorry, Mary. I like looking at my notes and not
right
at your.
here. Yeah, no, here we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, there you go. Sorry about that.
Nope, that's okay.
Yeah. And that's it for the regular financials.
So the only other thing that I wanted to share, and I believe I sent it in the email, was the listing of checks. We'll,
Okay.
that's always been part of a, I'm just going to show quickly what we do is, these are the listing for December. We have it broken out into ROM versus OCPC. And then we have, and again, it was in the packet, but then we also have the ones for January. These will always be included as part of your financials, part of just the backup information. I know that a lot of in the past, the council members really just kind of look through to see where those checks are going. And if you can see a lot of them, right, OCES. And
well, I think in the past, I think they were looked at in the pack as part of the packet.
Yeah,
and then the following month, yeah.
Yes.
So to just a different remote thing.
But will be included from your package as the financials from this point on when we
Yes.
go move forward. So
So Mary, you're looking for a motion to accept the financials?
yes,
Are we not voting on the ROM though? Is it like minus the ROM, or are we including the ROM in the vote?
we have been including them this past whole year with ROM as part of it. So it's part of the package. One of the things we talked about at finance for the council members is that ROM is a separate budget, and we will be holding a ROM meeting to talk about just the financials. We meet to create the budget, but on an annual basis, but we're going to need to, we talked about it at finance about holding at least one or two others just because of the substantive part of what we've done with the building and other kind of costs associated with the capital budget.
All right, so we can still include it in approval. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the financial reports?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
All right, so we've got a motion from Frank. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second, I think that was Doug. Was that you, Doug?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we had a second from Doug, and this is to accept the financial reports as provided by Brenda from December of 2020. Sandy, can you do a roll call vote?
Sure. Okay, Abington,
Accept.
Avon,
Accept.
Bridgewater, accept, Brockton,
Accept.
Duxbury,
Accept.
Easton,
Accept.
Hanson,
Accept.
Pembroke,
Accept.
Plymouth,
Accept.
Plimpton,
Accept.
Stoughton,
Accept.
West Bridgewater,
Oh, he said accept, I heard him.
and did we have Whitman?
Whitman's not here. They neither Ed nor Dan can make it.
Yep, okay.
All right, thank you, Sandy. All right, Mary, do you want to work into the staff report?
I am, and I think that for the most part, everybody, this was sent just yesterday, I believe. And I will say this at every staff meeting and at every one of the council meeting. The work that's being done by the staff is just incredible. Just the enormous part about with Lori and her team. And I know Lori Muncie's on, and she was highlighted in this week's newsletter for those who have not read it. But it really is, the team has really been coming into play. Right now, we had closed applications for the comprehensive planner position that Joanne was in. We moved Joanne into Bruce's position. And so we'll be getting that team fully staffed that's necessary. But looking at all the work that's being done in terms of enhance, and I know Deb Petty's on this in terms of hazard mitigation and the Stoughton housing production plan, the expedited permitting that was done for the city of Brockton, age-friendly in the town, age-friendly action plan that's being developed for the town of Easton. I mean, just truly amazing work by such a small amount of staff. Many of them are doing multiple jobs, and I think when there will be a number of people when we get the comprehensive plan person coming on, I think Lori will have a little bit of some breathing space, but so will Joanne, because Joanne is right now is still working on green communities, as you will see coming up here in these bullet points in terms of the annual reports, but also the final reports have been written, working with all of the communities. And our goal is to try to have all of our communities be designated and go for the green community designation. The SEDS and Dottie had been really kind of working with Joanne and Lori and really kind of taking that piece on, just continuing to work with the SEDS, the comprehensive economic development strategy, and retooling it. We had just the end of the year and summarizing has been great. Dottie's report, so Dottie does report to Lori, but Dottie's been doing just a separate economic recovery plan. It's really has been targeted and really being out there and getting grants to the communities. EDA in terms of listening with the various states of art councils. And I know that Dottie's been connecting with Lee Filson from the Plymouth County Development Council and the tourism that's so part of Plymouth. But then these are all broken down in terms of the biweekly meetings that she sits in with on the city of Brockton, but Stoughton and working with Mark Tisdale. What an incredible resource Mark Tisdale is and his team. But we've really worked well. Our organization works so well with the town, and Mark is just a great resource. But really, you know, EDA came up with some additional documents that were needed, and Mark didn't even skip a beat, and he worked really well with Dottie over the weekend and what have you. Certainly with Easton and the shop local, and so all of these things. So when you get an email from Dottie, it's like E.F. Hutton. Listen to what she has to say. There's all these great grants. What I do recommend is that you share it with your community, with your towns. We have them on the newsletter list, but just in case you may have some target that you might like to send them. Again, the buy local, this is all under Dottie, and there's the municipal grant finder. So transportation, I think I just need like a whole chapter just dedicated to what's going on in the transportation department and Charlie and his team. Charlie has, just because I really have relied on Charlie on a lot of different things that we're working with the bylaws and personnel bylaws, Charlie has really taken the reins and has passed some of that over to Bill McNulty, who's taking over the JTC meetings, really looking for some more members of the staff to really kind of step up that will free up some of his time so we can keep moving forward. But again, we're working with the town of Stoughton and the transportation study, Turnpike, Easton in terms of the reconstruction. We just we're on a meeting with the Mass DOT and the funding that's been always being forecasted out. I might have Charlie unmute himself just to kind of give a little bit of update about that. But the reality is that like the staff is still working on climate change, transportation vulnerability assessment project. That piece has been really important because it's Ray Garino from the staff, but he's also working with our environmental and planning staff on that piece. Charlie, you want to give an update just quickly? I don't know if you added it in here for this report, but just on our meeting that we had with MARPA and the Mass DOT.
Sure, thanks, Mary. So on an annual basis, the regional planning agencies and Mass DOT have an annual coordination meeting where they talk about finances and what to expect in the next 5 years as far as a funding forecast. Mary, if you scroll back up to the previous page.
Yep.
Where it shows Easton Depot Street. Yes, thank you. So as an example, for those of you who participate in JTC meetings and meetings of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, you hear me talk about the Transportation Improvement Program. We refer that to the acronym as the TIP. So Mary, highlight here on your screen is the fact that one of the projects in the TIP went out to bid, and the bids were opened by MassDOT a week or two ago, and it's in round numbers, it's a $10 million project. So projects are certainly moving ahead in the TIP, and I believe this coming Saturday, Avon, Harrison Pond, and Bodwell Street project is due to be advertised by MassDOT, and that's a multi-million-dollar project. So, you know, the TIP program is certainly a success. So going back to the meeting that Mary referred to earlier, the MARPA MassDOT meeting, is MassDOT presented the funding forecasts for the next 6 years of the TIP, and for the federal 22 through 25, it's basically what they had forecast last year. There's no decline. I know COVID-19 has been on a lot of people's mind in terms of transportation dollars and funding, but it was certainly good news reported by MassDOT that over the next couple of years that there's not going to be a decrease in the infrastructure funding for the TIP. And one of the things is there was some optimism that there may be a new federal transportation funding bill at some point, a multi-year legislation that might realize more dollars than we have now. So the funding forecast will go up once that bill is passed by Congress and signed by the president. But in the interim, the good news is, hey, you know, the funding's not being reduced for the TIP. So
thanks, Charlie. It really was good news to hear, and it really, it's Charlie participates with the other regional planning agency and the other transportation managers, and really good discussions about how to stay on top of this and how to be able to communicate with MassDOT. His reputation, it means Charlie's reputation, has just been incredible. And so just continuing on, these are all in the information that I'd sent you in the document. I just really think that as you can see, just about every single one of our communities have something going on, just whether it's a volume report or whether it's a mass builds. You know, again, lots of brainstorming with South Shore Chamber. So, you know, it's really wonderful information that's being there. David Klein is on the meeting today, and I just wanted his highlights have been, he had Busman director in terms of Lila Burgess, in terms of re-entry plans for the state ombudsman's office. They're waiting to get the nod. And then OCPC AAA staff are working on annual reporting. The tabulations, there was another 4 or 5 more that came in today, David, but there's a survey that David has been doing. I think you're up to like 800 surveys, which is an incredible number of responses that have coming in from various aspects of the region. And then AAA was recently notified by Mass DOT that they've been awarded up to $30,000 for elder transportation. And that's just another kudos to David and his work and the advisory board. And then the septic program continues to be very active. I know that we have a full plate left after this report, but as you can tell, I could just talk about staff and what they're doing like all day, just all day, and appreciate all of their hard work.
This is wonderful. See all these projects in our towns. Oh, great. It's such great representation, and what a wonderful variety of projects, you know, environment and transportation, housing, economic development. We're checking all the boxes. So great job, everybody. All right. So Mary, on to regional clearinghouse reviews.
Yep, and we're going to go right to the environmental notification that was part of the agenda when sending out. So there are just 2, the certificates, the Lawler Lane and Stoughton. It does not require an environmental impact report. And then also in Whitman, the 40-inch force main replacement does not also require environmental impact report. And as Lee has mentioned before, actually, I'm going to do a little bit of a sidebar. Sydney Merrill, the delegate from Brockton, is on the line, but for Sydney's and others, the reason why these are brought up, in case there is an interest, I make sure that usually when it is involving a particular community, that the delegate and alternates are aware, and all the proper notifications are there. But that is it for the environmental notification.
Thank you, Mary. All right, on to old business.
And so I will just give a quick update. There was legislation, as for the council members might have known, about having, it was noted in the audit report, about legislation about having having us financially be impacted of the tune of, what was it, $2.5 million. That legislation died with the end of the legislative session. Christine and Sandy and Doug at the finance meeting, we talked about this very issue, and Christine and I are going to put together a strategy in reaching out to legislators so that there is pending legislation that MARPA, the Massachusetts Association of Regional Planning Agency, is filing, so that we take a proactive approach in being certain that we are not going to be responsible for those what the state retirement board is looking to come after us for. So that is it for old business. We continue to keep this on our agenda until we have some closure to it. That way it just stays active as a participating item.
Excellent. Thanks, Mary. All right, so back on to new business. Do we want to turn things over to Lee to talk about the report of the bylaw review committee?
Yep, and I'll pull that up in 1 second, Lee, sorry.
Okay, no, I'll just go through a few things quickly, and Mary, feel free to jump in. So just to start, for the other members who were not involved, we did really what I would call an exhausting line-by-line review of the current bylaw. We looked at several other bylaws that were out there from other groups. Just a few highlights. Excuse, what was that?
You're phasing out.
No. Huh.
Voice.
So a few things that I would point out is we have a mission statement now that's here that we didn't have before. OCPC values, another thing that did not exist before. We spent a fair amount of time identifying what the executive committee was responsible for and their duties, as well as the council as a whole and what the council's duties are. So they weren't really that well expressed in the previous bylaws, so we really put a lot of time into that. We have a section on committees and the standing committees and the procedures for the operation of those committees. I think another thing that's important to note, we've added a code of conduct, which we did not have before, for employees as well as council members. And I would also just point out that after we went through this review, we had our council counsel. Murphy, Hesse, something, I can never remember.
Do me and Lahane.
And so they went through the bylaws too and came back with some edits and recommendations too. So it's been vetted by council also. And I think without going into great detail, that just kind of a good 100-foot overview of what it is. And I'd just like to thank Mary and Charlie for their hard work, as well as the rest of the committee members. I would point out, it was over 3 hours, one of the meetings we had. It was a marathon meeting. So there was a lot of time and effort that the committee put in. So again, thank you for helping me go through this. And we look forward to having this adopted by the full council as our new bylaws. And as time goes on, hopefully the next time it's a little quicker or easier, but it's certainly something we can amend in the future if something else does show up. So thank you. Mary?
I just want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman. You started this off by saying, hey, Mary, can I take this PDF and turn it into a Word document that we can amend? That started probably about, I don't know, 8 months ago. And it did. It was a great assistance from you to help us move forward. It is a lot of work. It will be reviewed on an annual basis. What comes next, which we haven't gotten to yet, but will be the personnel policies that do go a little bit hand in hand with this. It was noted that there's the table of contents has not been filled out, mostly because there's still some things about reformatting, but we will have a table of contents that will certainly go right into the middle of all of this, so it's easy to locate the document. But this should be a good guide. And I just wanted, again, we were able to have some great cooperation with our other regional planning agencies and getting together with them. How did they work? And they hired an attorney to take their bylaws, but again, we're all a little bit different. And under Lee's chairmanship, along with Jean Marie and Christine's input, it really was extremely helpful. You're the volunteers, we're the paid staff, and appreciate your time.
Any questions for Lee on the bylaws? All right, hearing no questions, do we have a motion to accept the new bylaws?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
All right, so we've got a motion by Frank and a second. Who seconded?
Stephen
I
seconded.
didn't hear.
Abington.
Stephen, thank you, Stephen. Okay, so motion, Frank, and a second from Stephen. Sandra, can you do a roll call vote to accept the new bylaws for the council?
Sure. Abington,
Accept.
Avon,
Accept.
Bridgewater, accept. Brockton,
Accept.
Duxbury,
Accept.
Easton,
Accept.
Hanson,
Accept.
Pembroke,
Accept.
Plymouth,
Accept.
Plimpton,
Accept.
Stoughton,
Accept.
West Bridgewater.
I heard him. We'll figure this out. I heard him.
I heard him.
Thank you, Lee, so much for taking the lead on this and keeping us on track and seeing this one to the finish line, because it was a lot of work. But we've come up with a really nice workable document that'll be easy to review going forward. So thank you so much for that. And Jean Marie serving. Thank you very much. Okay, so Mary, any more new business?
Sorry, here I am. I'm listening and I'm like, wait a minute.
I would like to speak on new business, Mary, if it's possible.
Madam President, yep.
Sure, absolutely. What do you have for us, Frank?
Well, excuse my voice. It's still not back, but I'll do the best I can. First of all, I want to congratulate everybody on the board. Over the last 7, 8, 9 months during a very tough time, we have accomplished a lot. We have become a business that has handled millions of dollars, both from local government, state government, and federal government. And it shows that we're trying to do all the right things, such as dot our I's and cross our T's. However, I would like to make a suggestion that at the next meeting, or as soon as we could get a meeting together, probably February, that the discussion drift towards having an attorney as our attorney to be on a very small retainer and set up a small budget item. We can always amend it at a later date. But in an instance like if you have personnel people who are threatening, or we need to know that, okay, don't call me, don't call Mary, don't call Christine, the president. Call our attorney and tell them what you have on agenda. And I think if we're going to be, this terrific company that we are becoming, I think we need to look into retaining a lawyer. We don't have to pay hundreds of thousands. There are a lot of young, good lawyers that work in towns. I see them all the time. I work with a lot of them. And I got to be honest with you, I think that it would suit us well, at least if we discuss it. If you people decide no, that's fine. But I think it's very imperative that we have all of our ducks in a row. And so far this year, we have done a phenomenal job of getting those ducks in a row. So I would just like to have that consideration, Madam President and Executive Director Mary. And I think it's something that's worthwhile listening to each other's comments on that. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Frank. That is a great suggestion. And I think that Mary can tell you that we actually have this duck in a row as well.
So, and I think that what we're doing for the bylaws and for the personnel bylaws, we have engaged Murphy, Hesse, Toomey Lehane, but I do think that perhaps we can bring the whole retainer attorney as a retainer to the finance committee, and maybe we can invite Frank to that finance committee so we can have some other robust discussion about, right, because once the personnel policies are there, technically, right, it's a management tool that's supposed to be helpful for myself, but also for the council. But
well, for very short money, it does not hurt to have a check on a check.
Agreed.
And we're getting bigger and better, and we want people in the state to say, hey, this Old Colony Planning Council is doing the right thing. They're doing this, they're doing that, they put their ducks in a row. Don't call this guy, they have an attorney. If you want to settle something with them, you first must get their attorney, he'll bring it to us. That's his suggestions, but thank you very much.
Yeah, I would.
Good suggestion, Frank, and we could talk about it. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I was going to say, we could definitely talk to, what Mary had said with Murphy and, maybe set up something to at least get maybe, as far as like finances down, as, what that fee would look like with them, because we've done work with them already. So it would make sense to maybe, at least pull them into this a little more.
Yeah, well, I think it needs to be discussed, and probably with God's help, by March, April, or May, we'll be meeting in person, and then we can look at each other and say, hey, I don't think that's the way to go. I think this is the way, but I would like to at least take it under advisement. And I hope I haven't disturbed anybody, but, my time on this board is very short, so I'd like to leave it a lot better place than when I came. And not that there was anything wrong, but I see you younger people are really on the ball. So
Well, you are also on the ball, Frank. I would recommend, Doug, as the finance chair, let's have a discussion. I think where Frank and I had a side conversation about this today, and that was perhaps we can just take a look at if we need to put out to bid to maybe there's a local
Right,
attorney.
options,
That,
right.
right. And so while we are secured with personnel policies and bylaws, as we continue on, perhaps there's see what a line item might look like, what a financial item, and then work with maybe a committee for selection of an attorney for a retainer.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
thank you
guess-
very much, Madam President. I really appreciate your consideration. And Mary, you're doing a terrific job, honey.
Thanks, Frank. Excellent suggestion. And Doug, we'll get moving on that. All right. So go ahead, Sandy. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess on that, I would just caution us to
Becky.
be careful about looking at, attorneys. When we're looking at doing a lot of municipal work and being a governmental organization, as someone who's been an attorney for over 30 years, I can tell you that specialties are wide ranging. And I'm not sure that we're going to find someone better than Murphy Hesse in terms of being able to handle a wide range of.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you, Sandy, but it's just the idea that there's no need to get a big attorney. There are a lot of town councils who know their stuff. They may not be Koppelman and Page, but they're not in the $100,000 range. So I think it's just something we have to look at.
And I think, Mr. Chairman of the Finance Committee, that maybe we can have Becky and Frank both be at that meeting. I think could have some good, robust conversation at that time.
Yeah.
Very good suggestion, especially where Becky's got some experience in this area. It would definitely be valuable. So absolutely. All right, great. Well, thank you. Very good suggestions for us to consider this going forward. Do we have any other community concerns? All right, any other business, Mary?
We do not. I just want to we have the upcoming meetings, but couple comments is that just to reiterate, these credentials are good for the rest of this year. You don't have to remember another name. I won't have to put in wrong numbers. I won't have to have a different password. This is it for the whole year. So memorize them. That's what I'm going to do. But these will not change. I think it's going to be healthy. It just helps move things along. Half the battle for all of us, including myself, is getting the right login and unmuting poor Eldon Elfer in the other room. So that's one piece. And then obviously when we're coming up to these next couple of meetings, we are going to look for this March meeting to at least start looking a little bit deeper into the budget. So we're looking at that March meeting to do maybe a deeper dive on the budget for both ROM, which will mean we'll have to adjourn as an OCPC and then join separately as a ROM meeting. So just a heads up about those two things. Oops, you're muted.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mary, very much. All right. Any visitors, comments, questions? I don't know if Sydney wanted to say anything or just wants to kind of stay in the background.
No, I just want to say hello to everyone. I'm happy to be a part of your council, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
And
welcome.
Madam President, I don't think I shared her resume or her cover letter.
No.
Sydney, and I will share that with everyone. I happen to be to know Sydney very well. What a wonderful community person here in the city of Brockton. I serve on the NAACP with her, and as a member there, she's on the executive committee. But we've known each other from Bridgewater State. She's a longtime resident of the city of Brockton, and her impact will be wonderful and work wonderfully with Preston. So we're going to set up a meeting just to get to know each other with you, Madam President, and then do some onboarding so we can play catch up for all these things that have been going on at OCPC.
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Very good. Well, welcome, Sydney. So we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. So our next meeting will be February 24th, followed by March 31st, which will be the budget meeting. So if we've got no other business, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. All right. Good night.